Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we're diving into a story that proves life's journeys are rarely straight lines, but are always worth the adventure. Our guest, Joshua Gray, first fell in love with acting as a teenager, discovering the magic of theater in school. He thrived on the challenge of becoming someone else, exploring new worlds and bringing characters to life. It was a passion that lit a fire in him early on, but life had a few more chapters to write before that fire fully took hold. After high school, Joshua took a bold step, trading the spotlight for service. He enlisted in the United States Army, where he trained as a paratrooper at Fort Benning, Georgia, and was stationed at Fort Richardson. For years, he served his country with dedication, discipline, and courage, embodying the very best of what it means to wear the uniform. Joshua, thank you for your service and for the sacrifices you've made to protect our freedoms. Now, when his time in the Army came to a close, Joshua found himself at a crossroads. That's when he rediscovered his first love, acting. Relocating to Boston, he immersed himself in the craft, starting with modeling and quickly transitioning into acting. Now, it didn't take long for him to make waves, landing roles, and even debuting on E! Network with How to Hang a Witch. Since then, Joshua has been in projects like The Final Stage, Hello, My Name Is, and Alter Ego. His film Better Off, a semi-biographical piece about his father, stands out as a deeply personal and deafening piece of work. And let's not forget his role in Stalker, Shadow of the Zone, where he drew on his Army experience to bring authenticity to the character OJ, and even spending time in Canada with a different Army detail to ensure his performance was immersive. This role earned him a feature in Cockpit USA magazine. Now, Joshua has made his mark behind the scenes as a producer, co-founding Fabian Gray in 2020. The company has worked on everything from Vogue to LAUSA collaborations to feature films, showcasing Joshua's range and passion for storytelling. His journey is a testament to resilience, passion, and the idea that not all roads are the same, but every step matters. Please join me in welcoming Joshua Gray. Joshua, thank you so much for your time and welcome.
No, thank you for having me on, man. Honestly,
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you for your service and everything that you've done for the country and your time. But I want to go back in time a bit. Now, during your younger years, you made the choice to leave theater and join the Army. What inspired you to enlist in the Army out of high school?
I, with getting out of I guess the best way to put it is, I joined the military to really get out of a situation. Um, because for me, like I had enjoyed theater quite a bit. Um, but unfortunately, junior year into senior year, I got kicked out of my home, and so I ended up living with my uncle. And I'm very thankful for what he had done to basically put me on his couch and did my senior year at a different high school. But it became very clear for me that like I didn't want to stay in that town. It was in New Bedford. If you know the story Moby Dick, then you know the town of New Bedford. But just there was a lot of bad things there, and it felt like the best choice was to just do something that I knew was going to relocate me, and be something that I was already interested in and kind of passionate. Um, so, after it was a very clear and simple decision for me. But once I made up my mind, I was like, all right, I'm signing up for the military, and ended up joining the Army in 2013.
So, out of curiosity here, when you say, hey, we joined out of high school 2013, why not just pack up and move? Like, why was it the Army? Why not just, hey, we're going to move to the next state or move to Canada, if you will, and just start fresh there?
I think part of it was just like I was in a very low income barrier in general. I've done, all different sorts of odds and ends for jobs, from working at Chuck E. Cheese to doing telemarketing to Burger King to the Army to modeling to high-end fashion. I've done a lot, but especially there where I'm like 17 and my job experience was telemarketing for like 2 months, which I hated, and working at Chuck E. Cheese. It didn't seem like I was going to be making 100,000 in a year anytime soon, and so signing up was kind of the one thing that was like, it's a very clear path. Everything is handled for you, and especially at such a young age where I didn't really have my stuff together. Without using any cussing words here, but I just didn't have any of my stuff together, and so I wanted somebody to kind of pick that up for me, and the military just made the most sense to just kind of translate over.
So when you joined into the military, you ended up actually going right over into being a paratrooper.
Hmm.
So how did you make that decision of saying, "Hey, I don't want to be on the front line. I don't want to drive a tank. I want to jump out of planes instead"?
Um, I mean, I think that it was just kind of I wanted to, I wanted to do something that was interesting. And I mean, to be honest, like, I had scored decently high on my ASVAB to a point where and ASVAB also, by the way, it's a military testing. It's a test basically. It's a score system. I think it's 1 through 100 specifically, or 99, but it kind of tells you what jobs you're qualified for. And for some reason, I wanted to be a door kicker, and was like, yeah, this seems interesting. This seems like I'm doing my part. When really it was just too many video games and action movies. So I opted for infantry, and obviously with the score tests, I did very well. I qualified for airborne school, and it was pretty much decided for me that I was just going to go straight from infantry into airborne. And so yeah, I ended up staying another 4 weeks after infantry school just to basically prep for jumping out of planes. I think it's like 3 weeks, if I remember correctly. It's been a while, but 3 weeks of prep and then 1 week of just jumping. You have 5 jumps in total before they give you your wings.
Now, what made you decide that it was time to move on? You said, "Hey, I'm kind of done here with the army. It's time to get back into acting and maybe a manager role at Chuck E. Cheese." Sorry, I had to poke
Right.
fun at you there a little bit, but
Yeah, no, that's fair, man. It's fair. We all got to wear the mask some way. Uh, yeah, I mean, I think the deciding factor for me, there was two parts to it. One was I really wasn't close with my family enough, and there was a lot of weight towards potentially coming back. Um, and so part of me wanted to really see them and be a little bit more present. But the other part was I was engaged at one point. Um, and I I really loved that person, and I felt like if maybe I came back, I could really repair and fix this relationship. Um, Only for me to kind of get back, and pretty much everything went to shambles. And so I was put in this position where I got back. Here I am, kind of just like directionless
mhm.
and getting told by pretty much everyone. And it's funny because I wouldn't say the parallels are very similar to now. I think that there's just definitely a little bit of a reflection period now in my life compared to, I guess, maybe 10 years ago. Um, but I was asked, what do you want to do? Where are you going to go? And for me, it was like, oh, do I want to pursue a business in this? Do I want to pursue acting? And fashion, sales, anything, just anything that was going to make money. And I think I was, you know, I have a bit of an ego, and I definitely felt like my ego was hurt, and I wanted to kind of get back at somebody. And so I was like, you know what? I think I'm good looking enough. I'll try some modeling. and see where that takes off. Um, and as I started to spend some time in modeling, that's kind of when the acting thing became very clear, from a lot of people that were starting to talk with me and give me some opportunities. So I guess that's kind of the path, how that was paved out.
And it's an awkward laugh, I can assure you, but it's this, you came back, hey, let's fix this. We can move forward. It didn't work out, and you said, you know what, I'm going to get back at you, and I'm going to go ahead and become a model. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, which is it's kind of embarrassing now, like hearing it. Um, but unfortunately, yeah, I mean that was just it's interesting how my ego decided to do that as its direction. Still very childish, I think.
you know what, though, it's this really cool story, to be honest with you, where it's this, I came back for you, if you will, right? And we're going to fix this and move on, and we're going to have our lives together. It doesn't work out. You say, you know what? I'm going to get this giant ego boost and not just become a model and see if this works, but be a successful model to the point where they're now saying, hey, you know what? Do you want to do some acting gigs as well? And so the ego goes up even more. This is not only am I good looking for these cover magazines, I'm now going to be in movies as well. That's
You know,
it.
I mean, hey, you said it, so like,
Yeah, no, it's just such a remarkable way of looking at it. A lot of people are like, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to go get in shape, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to whatever. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to go make sure that everybody else knows that I'm attractive too. I love it.
yeah.
So, how long were you modeling before they came knocking on the door and said, "Hey, we want to put you in this movie"?
Um, hmm. I think it was probably about a year or two. It was about a year or two, and I had done some stuff. I did some Reebok stuff and Puma, and I remember I got the pleasure to meet. Her name is Patrice Vinci. She's located in like Copley. Is it Copley? It's not the Copley Mall. What am I thinking? Newbury Street. She's right off Newbury Street. She's a hairstylist, and so she's done like all the greats. A friend of mine who works there basically said like you should come in and just get your haircut done. We'll take some photos for his portfolio, I think it was. And I got to meet with her, and she was super sweet and super kind. And so I forget how it started, but basically someone was like, what's your background story? And, I had mentioned being a farmer. I had mentioned being on my own since 17, the military, kind of the couch surfing that I was currently going through. And um, not to sound dramatic, but there was a couple other clients there, but the whole place was quiet by the time I was done talking. And Patrice basically had said to me, "You're not a model, you're an actor because of how you talk and the way you can, uh, now I'm coming short with words here, but um, inflect emotion
Mhm.
into kind of what you're trying to convey." And so she gave me an opportunity where she was just like, you're going to go do one of these acting classes. And I had said, I really can't afford it. I'm pretty broke, just doing what I can to basically just afford food while sleeping on these couches. And she's like, I'll pay for the class, but you have to report back. And so I went in, did this monologue bit about this guy who was trying to recover his wife's body. And, I was 20, 22, maybe 23 at that time, when I was doing the monologue. And the character was supposed to be in his 40s. But by the time we were done, coach came over and was like, okay, hey, so like really good points. This is where I would, enhance. By the way, what school do you go to? And I was like, I don't go to a class or a school. And he's like, you need to do this. So he called Patrice, basically said, yeah, this is how well he did. And then from there, it was start getting auditions, start practicing because you need to do this.
So, what was that like for you when you got the first audition from Patrice? You went to acting school. The people there had said, "Hey, you know what? You need to be in this world. This is for you." And, we all know that we go to work, we get that text or email that says you have an audition, but someone who came from the modeling world who is new to all of this, right? You were just thrown in an acting class. These people just said, you got to do this. What was that like? What was that emotional feeling for you?
Um, I think it felt like home. Um, it felt like there was, I guess, a sense of understanding. As I've gotten older, I've started to realize that a lot of that came from simply wanting acceptance or praise. But initially, it really did feel kind of like there was a connection, something that like I was lacking across the board just because of, you know, um, bad family elements or poor relationships, dating wise. And so to kind of find this thing where even if it only lasts for 30 or 40 seconds where you're looking at someone else who's portraying a character and you're portraying a character, um, you kind of feel something in your heart that for me was kind of a defining factor of like, okay, this is what I want to do. Whatever this thing is I'm feeling, I love this and don't want to walk away from it. So yeah.
And now with your career, and we find that, I'm going to refer to as this, the serotonin boost. You're there and you're looking at someone else, you're on set, you just, as you said, you feel at home. Do you see yourself leaning more into acting, producing, writing, directing? This world is where you're meant to be, especially in this industry part of it. What part is most interesting to you? Portraying somebody else, or you want to get behind the camera? What would be your goal in that?
Absolutely the acting side of it. The producing side of it, I really didn't get involved with that until it became very clear that it was going to be a necessity. It was going to be something that was going to be a vital thing to learn in order to make me as a performer even sharper and kind of a a crew's cast member per se, instead of just an actor who lives in his own world and thinks that he's so special. Um, so yeah, if to answer the question, it would just be performance. If I had to pick one out of any, it would be acting all day.
So let's fast forward here. Your film Stalker Shadow of the Zone, right? You played your character OJ. This got you a feature in Cockpit USA, and you got to spend some time in Canada doing
Mhm.
some kind of, different Army detail training, is how I'm going to say that. So walk us through what made you say Stalker's the one for me. This is this passion project. I got to get to Canada. I got to do this.
It's a lot there. With Stalker, it wasn't the first. Originally, I worked with Stephen Hancock and Evan Muir. That was the director of photography and the writer. They both work as co-directors, but originally they had done this project called SCP Overlord, and I had found it right in the beginning of COVID. Really liked their stuff. I really thought that they were very talented and very gifted guys. And so I said, hey, I've got a little bit of a producing background. This was right around the same time I had just completed LUSA and some other fashion bits. And so I was like, let's see what we can do. We had prepared another project called, um, oh God, what was it called? SCP wasn't Overlord. It escapes me, but it was, we had worked on that for a couple of months where Evan had written it. And essentially, oh man, it's going to drive me up a wall if I don't figure this one out, actually. Um, Essentially, for a lack of better words, though, we had worked on another film and really wanted it to work out. And we got the Kickstarter together and launched it. It raised quite a bit of money. It raised about $340,000, but we knew that the budget for to just to make this because of the complexity of what they wanted to do. Um, we knew it was going to cost us like 650,000 because they wanted like a sound stage. They wanted all the bells and whistles. And about um, halfway through, we we ended up basically realizing that we were like, look, we're not going to hit our goals. Um, the best thing we could do is pull back, write a film for 250,000 or something close to that, and then try this again. And so we did, which ended up being Stalker. Um, I think for us, it was a lot of letting Evan, the writer, really kind of take the reins here, just because of his previous success with Overlord, and basically saying, okay, yeah, this might be it. We're gonna kind of trust your instinct on this, and so we pushed behind it, and before we knew it, we did end up hitting that Kickstarter goal. I think in total we raised about 310,000 for it, which is amazing, just because that's all fans,
Yeah.
for the most part. And after that, once we got our funds over, I think we walked away with 278 after Kickstarter took their bit and some taxes. We were into pre-production, and that's kind of where I was like, look, I've been out of the military for a little bit. There was a guy, I forget if he's I forget if he's off of his like secret clearance. We'll just call him Blue Line Syndicate for the moment.
Sure.
But there's a guy by the name of Blue Line Syndicate. You guys can find him on Instagram. But he had provided us a lot of gear for this movie, about $100,000 worth of gear, and was not going to ask for a penny. And so I was like, well, I'm working as his producer. I want to fly out. I want to work with him. I want to train with him. I want to talk to this guy and see, maybe there's something else there. And so we ended up flying out. He previously worked as a Canadian Mountie. I think he's done some uh, additional stuff for like narcotics, special teams, as well as there was another gentleman who was Blackwater. Um, Although I think they go by a different name now. And so we ended up training out there for about 5 or 6 days, just to kind of dial me back in, get everything ready to go. So by the time I transferred over, not only was our relationship and friendship strong, but obviously I was able to move and get very familiar with the equipment that we were going to be using on site.
Do you find that you're being sent out for more, I'll say these action roles or these army roles due to your experience, or are you being sent out for like, the dad, the guy next door, and the Disney-esque style and the Hallmark movies?
Um, that's a good question. I don't know yet. I think that I've got a lot of friends who are in the military side of things, and there's a lot of offer towards, like, hey, we're going to be filming this bit. You should come out and join. And I'll come in. They'll already have kind of a role that's already lined up for me, and so I'll come in. I'll read those bits and stuff like that. As of recently, I've been talking to bigger agencies, so like UTA, I've been talking to, as well as some of the more local to Dallas agencies because of the film initiative out here. So I'm very interested to see how it comes because I honestly took a break as a whole from like really getting into like the cattle call approach, working with it. I've had a manager before, I've had agents before. I basically told myself, I was like, I'm just going to work on Stalker, but like, because it's a producing and an acting thing. And this is probably one of the bigger things that I'm going to be doing. Um, and I'm not going to think about those other things until I'm done with this, because I knew that it was going to be something where once completed, it would be a very nice note to add on that resume to a point where a lot of other actors would not have those kinds of things. So hopefully going forward, I think in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I should start talking to agents, and then we'll see if I'm going to be either like a Disney Plus type cast member, or if this is going to go more towards like the HBO or what is it, AMC kind of performers. So I'm hoping for the HBO AMC. I'd go that all day, but I get the look thing, so we'll see.
What's the most challenging part for you? I mean, a lot of people will say it's the sitting and waiting, but when you look at yourself and your career and everything that you've done, and now you're in this industry, what's the most challenging part for you?
think it's just figuring out where I belong. Like, I mean that in a manner of, you know, uh, not to get like too philosophical here, but it's like, just like in general, like I genuinely don't know entirely where I'm like belonging. Like, for me, I just turned 30, and for a lot of people, you're like, hey, that's like super young. But also, I feel like a lot of people naturally reflect at that period and go, okay, hey, like you didn't get an Oscar at 22. You're not breaking Adrian Brody's Oscar record. So there's that. You're not a millionaire. So there's that. So what are you? And so I think for me, career wise as well as life wise, it's just kind of finding where that balance is of like, what is going to genuinely bring me happiness? And I think the first and foremost thing is just, and I think this is for anybody who's still kind of in that same spot, is just stability. Just find stability. Like focus on that. Maybe that's not like directly into your industry. Like for me right now, I'm doing real estate as well as doing performance. I'm finding more balance in real estate
Mhm.
and then coming back and being a million times better. Like like we just recently did a short, and I've I had a splitting headache, yet I had probably one of the best times I've had on a set in a very long time because I wasn't worried about bills. I wasn't worried about all these other little problems. And I think that's kind of the biggest issue that a lot of, at least if we're just on the performance side, a lot of people come in where, you'll talk to these coaches and they're like, yeah, so like, obviously there's this big element of, you putting yourself in the character and preparing, but also when you get to the casting room, don't look like you want the job. Everybody wants the job. Like we're all broke. So most actors, as far as I know, are usually broke. They're not doing great. And so the best like the best thing you can do is just get yourself in a good spot so then you can go into that room and not care because it really does show. Like they genuinely, like everybody, it very much shows.
Don't act like you want the job, but you do want the job because you need the money, but at the same time, bring
Don't want the
truth
job.
to it, but don't want it at the same time. Yeah. Like, psh, that's okay. You can go with somebody else. Yeah, I'll see you at the Oscars. Um,
Yeah. No pressure, just no pressure. So I mean, yeah, just finding the stability. I think it's really finding the stability and just figuring out where my place is with it and where I'm most comfortable being. I think those are the most difficult parts.
So when we look at this industry and we say, a lot of people will say, what's your 5-year goal, your 10-year goal, your 3-year goal, the next 30 days out? And with the exception of looking for a different agent or a larger agent like UTA that, as you described, where do you kind of see the next 10 years of your acting? Do you find yourself going for those action roles, the comedy roles, the drama roles, or just something consistent?
I think over the next 10 years, it's gonna be a mixed boat. I'd love to do something that I care about and obviously pay some bills would be great. But something that I really care about probably every other year would really be the objective, whether that's a feature film or that's a TV show. I really don't want to get caught up in the commercial work. Um, unless it's being the Dos Equis guy, that'd be great. But it's I genuinely, I'd rather just kind of give myself some proper spacing and be able to, again, kind of really stay in that world of stability and take my time in being picky on like what I want, and then gradually kind of growing and building out kind of the public's persona or character that people would see when, they're like, oh, it's, if you're like, it's Mahershala Ali, I think that guy has a range of different characters. Michael Fassbender, Jake Gyllenhaal. You can see those characters and you can kind of already articulate what character they should be or what they are. And so, I mean, that comes with any actor. Being picky is very important because if you're the dunce at the beginning of your career, you're going to stay the dunce. It's very hard to get out of that box.
You'd mentioned something there about spacing, something every other year in with how you're working on things. Can you kind of explain that a little bit more? What do you mean by, give yourself some spacing?
When it comes to spacing, it's more just because, well, to answer specifically, what is spacing? The spacing is focusing on pre-production and getting certain things done, right? Like right now, we have two decently sized projects. One that's potentially going to be in front of some Fox executives. They've already said they really like it, the concept, and it belongs to a very close friend of mine that I really want to just make happy. The guy's put so much into our other projects. I just want him to get something back. So, getting into pre-pro for that, getting sales stuff ready, or, there's another feature that we're shooting potentially at the end of this year, and it's a $3 million thing. Those kinds of projects, those require my attention, especially when getting hired in the business side of it, and it feels wrong to try to do those things, plus on top trying to do the acting thing,
Mm.
plus on top doing a real estate thing, plus on top trying to be a good boyfriend, and just paying your bills or being a good human. And so uh, this spacing is why it's so ideal, where it's like, at least with some of these projects, there are characters that are potentially written for me, and I'm very happy with those. But in the midst of that, if I do get picked up by someone like UTA or other agents, they're going to put things in front of me, and I want to be able to look at it and say, yes, I really love this, or no, I respectfully don't want to do this,
Mhm.
and don't think that in the long term it's going to be beneficial. And I'd rather have the confidence knowing to turn that down versus just being so hungry or so distracted and not providing the proper space for being able to breathe, that I end up making just dumb decisions, which I already do naturally. So I don't want to I don't want to exasperate that process even more.
And Joshua, where can people learn more about you? Where's your Instagram? Do you have a website? Where can we find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. It's going to be Joshua Gray, Gray at, sorry, I'm thinking my emails. Um, with Instagram, it's going to be Joshua Gray NYC. And then just on IMDb at the moment for Joshua Gray, it should be the 7th, which is kind of cool. But website wise, we're still working on some stuff. I'm actually working independently with a new production house, Gray Matter Media. So that website will be up soon. I'm sure that will be www.graymattermedia.com, .net, .something, but it will be up.
And Joshua, if someone gave you a magic wand and said you can fix one thing about the world tomorrow, what would it be?
Global warming.
Hmm. No, I like that. And when you wake up in the morning and you're going to go grab a cup of coffee, what kind of coffee do you drink?
I do the Nespresso pods
Okay.
with a little bit of ice.
And Joshua, I have time for one last question for you today on Coffee with Chris, and I really appreciate you being here. Is what makes Joshua smile?
Being with friends. Being with friends.
No, I love that. And as I said, that was the last question I had for you today on Coffee with Chris. Everyone out there, get to Google, find Joshua Gray, get on Instagram and follow him at Joshua NYC. Lots of projects coming out, more exciting stuff to come for sure. Remember, everyone, to smile to inspire and have yourselves a fantastic day.